Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. This Saturday is UFC 267. I cannot wait for this fight card. It is just amazing. So many great fights on this card. And in the featured fight on the main card of UFC 267, we have Islam Makhachev versus Dan Hooker. And I love this fight. I can't wait for this fight. And this is going to be my full breakdown and prediction for this lightweight fight. Now, guys, if you're looking for UFC 267 prediction videos, I've already done a couple on the channel. I'll link those in the description if you want to go check them out after this, and I'll have some more coming in the future. So make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you can check those out as well. But let's talk about Islam Makhachev versus Dan Hooker. So if you look at the tail of the tape, Islam Makhachev is currently ranked number 5, while Dan Hooker is currently ranked number 6. Islam Makhachev is 30 years old, while Dan Hooker is 31 years old. Islam Makhachev is 5'10", while Dan Hooker is 6 foot. And Islam Makhachev has a 70.5-inch reach, while Dan Hooker has a 75.5-inch reach. So Dan Hooker has a little bit of a reach advantage over Islam Makhachev. Now, if you look at Dan Hooker is coming off a win against Nasrat Haqparast back at UFC 266. So Dan Hooker is fighting on back-to-back pay-per-views. UFC 266 was Volkanovski versus Ortega September 25th, just last month. And Islam Makhachev was originally supposed to fight RDA. And this was a fight that the UFC wanted multiple times. I think they booked it 3 or 4 times. Both guys pulled out. I think Islam pulled out once and RDA pulled out twice, something like that. And, Dan Hooker and Islam Makhachev had been talked about in the last year and a half or so. Dan Hooker was saying he was too highly ranked to fight back against Islam Makhachev. And there was talk about Islam Makhachev, he couldn't find an opponent. Well, the RDA versus Islam fight was scheduled for UFC 267. RDA pulls out again. Dan Hooker is coming off a win against Nasrat at UFC 266. And he says, you know what? I will step in on short notice and fight Islam Makhachev on a month's notice just after, a 3-round fight against Nasrat at UFC 266, which is absolutely incredible. Now, in that fight against Nasrat, Dan Hooker looked okay. I don't think it was the most impressive win. I'm not super high on Nasrat. Nasrat landed some great left hands on Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker pretty much won the fight with his grappling, which is really odd to say. Dan Hooker's not known for his grappling ability. He's more known for his striking. Now, if you look at Dan Hooker's resume and you look at his last 3 fights, he's 1-3. He's 1-2 in his last 3 fights. Before the Nasrat win, he lost to Michael Chandler by first-round KO. In that fight, he was just circling away, hands low. Michael Chandler was pumping the jab to the body and came over with an overhand right, sat Dan Hooker down, followed up a ground and pound, finished him in the first round, only a couple minutes into the first round. And Dan Hooker looked like he might retire after that fight. He was taking off his gloves and everything. Before that, he fought Dustin Poirier at the Apex in June of 2020. And this was one of the greatest fights that I've ever seen. Back and forth, he hurt Dustin Poirier multiple times. And, in this video, I knew I was going to talk about this Dan Hooker versus Dustin Poirier fight. And, whether it's Dan Hooker or Islam Makhachev, I know I'm going to say a couple things in this video that people are not going to like. And as I was looking over Dan Hooker's resume, I think Dan Hooker's best performance was the loss to Dustin Poirier. And I'm not, I've talked about it before. You can't really judge a guy off of a single loss. That happened to Gustafsson a while ago. He lost to John Jones. It was a very close fight. And everyone acted like Gustafsson was the best fighter there ever was. And he never really lived up to that hype after that. Now, I'm not saying that's the exact same thing as Dan Hooker, but just looking over his resume and his wins and his losses, his best performance was against Dustin Poirier, where he lost by decision. Now, before that, he had a split decision win over Paul Felder. Before that, he beat Ali Iaquinta. Before that, he beat James Vick by KO. But James Vick has CTE, and his chin is made of glass, so the James Vick win wasn't all that great. Before that, you're going all the way back to December of 2018 when he fought Edson Barboza. And this fight was an absolute crazy war, and Dan Hooker took so much punishment. At one point, I was really hoping Dan Hooker's team might throw in the towel. And, unfortunately, he ended up getting finished to the body. I think it was at the end of the 3rd round. But, that was a grueling fight. But it just showed how durable Dan Hooker is. And if you really go just further and further down his resume, he's fought some decent names. He's a former featherweight. He moved up to lightweight, had success at lightweight. He has losses to Yair Rodriguez. He has a loss to Jason Knight, who I believe is over at Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship now. losses to Edson Barboza. His most notable win that I totally forgot that he had, was against Gilbert Burns, who's now having massive success at welterweight. But Dan Hooker, while I believe he is a great fighter and he's a top 10 lightweight, and lightweight is one of the best divisions, I'm starting to wonder, is Dan Hooker a little bit overrated? And I know that sounds crazy. And we're going to talk about Islam Makhachev, and then we're going to get into my prediction in a second. But I'm just, you look over, and every time he had that step up in competition, Edson Barboza lost, Dustin Poirier lost, Michael Chandler lost. In a win over Nasrat, how much does that really mean? Now, if you look at Islam Makhachev, and I know for sure Islam Makhachev has like a cult-like following, and I know people are going to comment hating on me for this video, but Islam Makhachev has really fought limited competition within his UFC career. He's on a massive win streak right now. He only has one loss in his MMA career, and that was against Adriano Martins by KO. He was KO'd, and I believe it was the first round. I think he got caught with a massive right hand right on the chin and went down. But other than that, he's just been winning nonstop. That's his only loss. Now, in his last few fights, he beat Thiago Moises, fourth round submission, rear naked choke. Before that, he submitted Drew Dober. And I think the best win on his resume, if you go back to April of 2019 when he beat Arman Sarukian, I think that's a very quality win that's aged very well. I like that win. Again, the resume is not that great. And I talk about these resumes, and they don't mean everything when it comes to predicting a fight. I just like to kind of give you guys the information that I look at to really decide who I'm picking in a fight. It's not an exact science, but you look at Islam Makhachev, and I believe in his skill set. I think he has great skills, great grappling, great top pressure. But again, we have not really seen him tested against the elite of the elite. And Dan Hooker is finally a step up. And I know people think Islam Makhachev versus Dan Hooker is a better fight than Islam Makhachev versus RDA, but I disagree. I think RDA gets a bad rap because he lost to the elite of the elite at welterweight. Now he's coming back down to lightweight. I would have been more likely to pick RDA than Dan Hooker in this fight. Not that I'm not picking Dan Hooker. We'll get to that in a second. But I think RDA, I think he's more likely to beat Islam Makhachev than Dan Hooker is, if that makes sense. So you look at some of these other names, Nick Lentz, Gleison Tebow, it's just not the elite of the elite. And I know Islam is currently ranked number 5, and I know the UFC has said, people are unwilling to fight Islam Makhachev, but he finally got moved up in the rankings after a big win over Thiago Moises. But Thiago Moises, I think, was ranked number 15 at the time. Islam beat him. So you beat a number 15 or 14 ranked guy maybe, and you move up all the way to number 5. Regardless of how I feel about your skill set, you clearly haven't proved that you belong in that top 5. But this fight against Dan Hooker, it's finally his opportunity to really prove that he belongs in there. Shut up all the doubters. And I'm not saying I'm an Islam Makhachev doubter. Again, I'm really high on his skills. I'm really excited to see where he can go in the lightweight division, and I think he can go far. But I'm just saying we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen it in front of our eyes. Thiago Moises is a great fighter. But again, lightweight is an amazing division. And, Thiago Moises has not done a lot in it. So in that Thiago Moises fight, Islam Makhachev showed a lot because he faced a little bit of adversity. He was having a little bit of trouble with Thiago Moises. He was even, I was shocked at Thiago Moises' strength of ability to work with Islam Makhachev in the clinch. I thought Islam Makhachev would be much more dominant in the clinch and the takedowns. Went all the way to the 4th round. So Islam Makhachev showed that he had 4th round cardio, and he eventually finishes Thiago Moises by submission. And I don't think Thiago Moises has ever been finished up until that point in the UFC. So it was a great win. The Drew Dober win was another great win. That was back at UFC 259, March of this year. And again, I already talked about the Saruki win. So anyway, the way I see this fight going down, I can really see this fight going 2 ways. I either see Dan Hooker by finish, or I see Islam Makhachev by decision. And, I've really bounced this one back and forth. And I'm officially going with, my official prediction will be Islam Makhachev by decision. And Dan Hooker striking, I just don't feel like it's so good. Now, I think if he can keep the fight standing, I think he has a very good chance to win. I think maybe he can land a step-in knee. Islam Makhachev, while he has great grappling, he has great takedowns, he has a little bit of trouble closing the distance. And when I say he has a little bit of trouble, he enters a little bit sloppy. He's susceptible to getting caught with a big strike. And Dan Hooker is super sneaky with that step-in knee to the body. And if a guy's hunched over, leaning down, looking for that double leg, he can get caught right on the chin and put to sleep. Now, do I think Dan Hooker can stuff those takedowns? I think maybe early Dan Hooker can, just because Islam might be a little bit worried about those knees and the strikes, and Dan Hooker has good hands as well. But I just don't think it's going to be enough. Dan Hooker may be able to win that first round, keep it standing for the majority of the first round. But as the fight wears on and Dan Hooker starts to slow down and he's backpedaling, it takes a lot more energy to, circle around backwards than it does to move forward. And we know what Islam Makhachev wants to do. He wants to move forward, pressure Dan Hooker, back him against the fence, clinch with him, and take him down. And that's just Islam Makhachev's strategy. And I know, he gets so much hype because he trains with Khabib Nurmagomedov, but Islam Makhachev does not have the same level of takedowns that Khabib Nurmagomedov has. But he has great takedowns. I believe he can get Dan Hooker down. But the reason I brought up Khabib is because when people talk about Islam, they compare him to Khabib. Now, the reason I'm going with a decision for Islam Makhachev in this fight is because Islam Makhachev does not have the same level of ground and pound that Khabib Nurmagomedov does. I don't see Islam Makhachev. Dan Hooker is so tough and durable. We've seen it in plenty of fights. I know he got finished by Michael Chandler, but that Michael Chandler is so explosive and fast and powerful in that first round. I just don't think that Islam Makhachev is going to be able to ground and pound Dan Hooker out. He's super durable, and I just don't think Islam Makhachev is going to be able to do that. Now, I think Dan Hooker is going to be moving around the cage. I think second round Makhachev is going to get a takedown. I think he's going to be able to control him. I don't think Dan Hooker is going to be able to get up. And I just think that he's going to ground and pound him, control him. Every time he goes to ground and pound him, Dan Hooker's going to look to find his way back to his feet. But again, Islam Makhachev is going to regain position, stop with the ground and pound, control him. Dan Hooker's going to be fighting, and he's going to get tired from trying to get up. The third round, it's going to come easier for Islam Makhachev. He's going to be able to take Dan Hooker down again, hold him down, beat him up, and just eke out maybe a 29-28 decision. He could win 30-27. I could see him winning the first round, but if Dan Hooker, wants to win, I think he has to finish Islam Makhachev in the first round. And the other reason, when I was flipping back and forth on this fight, the other reason I could not pick Dan Hooker in this fight, because I do believe Dan Hooker has a legitimate chance. I don't think he's going out there to be absolutely steamrolled by Islam, or he doesn't have a chance at all. I know the odds are probably crazy in Islam Makhachev's favor, but this is a less than ideal camp for Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker was having trouble with his training camp for Nasrat. He had visa issues getting to the United States. He just doesn't have a legitimate camp. And then on the top of that, he's turning around on 4 weeks' notice to fight Islam Makhachev. How much can we expect out of Dan Hooker coming off of a 3-round fight against Nasrat and having a less than ideal camp for that fight, and now having a less than ideal fight for Islam Makhachev? He needs to be in there drilling with, heavy wrestlers with great takedowns and great top game. And you just can't replicate that in 4 weeks. He needed an 8-week training camp, 12-week training camp. So it was just impossible for me to pick him. I think he has a chance, but he has to land on the feet and he has to land early. And if Islam wins this fight, I'm already on the Islam Makhachev hype train a bit. I know it sounds like I'm not, but if Islam wins this fight and he wins it impressively against Dan Hooker, I am all aboard, and I think Islam Makhachev should be one fight away from a lightweight title shot after this fight. Maybe he could fight the winner of Michael Chandler versus Justin Gaethje. It all depends what happens with Charles Oliveira and Dustin Poirier. But I am 100% on the Islam Makhachev hype train if he beats Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker is a quality opponent, and I'm so happy to finally see Islam tested. My favorite thing about this sport is to see guys that we have questions about, that we're high on, but the level of competition they face so far is not the best. And we finally get to get some answers on Saturday at UFC 267. I cannot wait for this fight. Do me a favor, guys. Let me know what your prediction is in the comments. I'm always curious who you guys are picking. If you guys enjoy these prediction videos, make sure to like the video. I greatly appreciate it. It helps grow the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.